Philadelphia Eagles will be hosting the plucky, upstart, upset-minded Washington Commanders. Right now, Eagles 6-point favorites, total sitting at 47.5. That is your consensus number in the market, and that is the number over at BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Obviously, from an injury standpoint, PJ, Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, back on the practice field today, being Wednesday, doing some work out there. Nick Sirianni very vague about how much work Jalen Hurts would do, but at least said he would do something. Same with their star rookie cornerback Quinyon Mitchell. He is also back on the practice field. Once again, Eagles 6-point favorite, total 47.5. We have not talked about this game. Where are you at side total in this NFC East clash, Commanders at the Eagles?
Have not bet anything yet, side or total, but I do have a couple leans on both of them. Femi, the way that I look at it, I have concerns for both teams. With Washington, two major things that I have concerns with. The first one is the fact that Jaden Daniels is facing the Eagles for the third time, right? So they've gotten two looks at him. Detroit didn't see him in the regular season. Tampa Bay saw him all the way back in week one, but week one, Jaden Daniels was night and day different than what they saw in the playoffs. So how is that going to look like, that chess game, right? You're going up against great defense in Philly. You're going up against a great defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, and they've already seen you twice before. So I think that's advantage Eagles. And then also the weather. You know, it's not looking like it's supposed to snow. We're not supposed to get any kind of precipitation. It's just supposed to be cold. But here's a kid who played his college ball at Arizona State and LSU, and I get it. I understand it gets cold in the D.C. area. I live here, right? He practices in it, but he hasn't played a game, especially of this magnitude, in that kind of weather, right? I mean, they played at Ford Field with the dome. They played in Tampa where it's warm out. So he's playing in cold weather, really, for the first time, especially a game of this significance. He's going up against a defense that has seen him already twice this year. So those are my concerns for Washington. And then with Philly, it's the injury report. You brought up Jalen Hurts. Obviously, how does he look after suffering an injury against the Rams? And Quinyon Mitchell, that's another big deal, because when these two teams played in Philly on that Thursday night game, Femi, Terry McLaurin had one catch for 10 yards, right? And Quinyon Mitchell was the primary corner in that game. So if Mitchell plays and obviously isn't 100%, or if he doesn't play, I mean, that's a big deal. And I think then you really look at Terry props, and that's a big benefit for Washington. I will say, and again, I always love when I feel like games and totals are correlated, or sides and totals are correlated, and I think this game is like that. I think if you like Washington, I think you lean over. If you like Philadelphia, I think you like under, right? Which kind of makes sense, because we know the Eagles want to run the ball. If they got to give it to Saquon 25, 30 times, they're going to do it. They want to play good defense. They want to chew the clock and milk drives. That's what they do best. Whereas Washington, they want to get in shootouts like they do against Detroit. They want to create explosive plays on offense. They want to force turnovers and short fields on defense. And you look at these two teams, Washington won their matchup 36-33. Philly won their matchup 26-18. So I lean Eagles in the under, Femi, in this game, because again, I do worry about Jaden, even though he has been spectacular this season. I think a team that's seen him for the third time, I think that's advantage Philly. They're going to have a tough time stopping Saquon, even though they know the run's going to be coming a lot. I like the Eagles. I lean towards them in this game, anything under 7. And again, just my personal thought, I think if you like Philly, like me, I think the under is probably the play in the game too.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Saquon part of this thing. He was going off against the Commanders in both games. The game in Philadelphia, that Thursday night football game, had the touchdown run to kind of clinch the game and put that one on ice. And then we saw him, like, I thought he was going to go for like 270 yards in the game in Washington when he had the two big runs in the first quarter. I think he was like at a $150, like with 3 quarters to go, ended up like landing on like 180 or whatever it was when Jalen Hurts got injured, got the concussion protocol. Then Kenny Pickett came in and ruined the game pretty much for the Philadelphia Eagles. But hey, that's what happens sometimes in the NFL. But yeah, Saquon Barkley is going to be a big problem for the Commanders. But you mentioned that all of the issues and, like, I guess all the concerns is probably the better word for it that you have for Jaden Daniels, rookie on the road. Any concerns with Jalen Hurts? I mean, 130 yards passing against Green Bay, 130 yards passing against the Los Angeles Rams. Passing game looks broken. Doesn't look like it's there and like all connected this deep into the playoffs. Any concerns with the Eagles QB1, who, when the passing game isn't working, in addition to also being injured and dealing with the knee injury?
Definitely some concern. And, you know, you just watch Philly's offense, Femi, these first 2 playoff games, right, against Green Bay and the Rams. And I mean, it's really been a majority Saquon, right? It's been the turnovers kind of giving him short fields and helping him out. How different would that Green Bay game have been if the Packers didn't fumble the opening kick, right? Philly got off to a 7-0 start.
Don't remind me.
And essentially played the entire game with the lead. The Rams were right there before they had back-to-back drives with turnovers. So, look, we know the story of the divisional round. Every team that lost outgained the other team, but they also had more turnovers. So that when we get to this time of the year, that's what it's all about. So that's why I have concern with Jalen, because the passing game certainly is something to be worried about. But at the same time, I don't have concern because the Eagles are at home. I think they're going to lean on their run game. They're going to lean on Saquon. That is what they are built to do. And they're going to lean on their defense as well. And I think they're just going to try and win games in the playoffs like they've kind of been winning them. You know, it was 22-10 against Green Bay. That game against the Rams, before we started to get some fireworks there in the final 6-7 minutes, was going to be an under-type game too. So I think Philly's just kind of turned themselves into like a grind you out kind of team, right? It's like Kansas City, where it's not all that pretty, but they just kind of wait for the other team to make mistakes. They run the ball, and then they just find ways to win games at the end. It makes it tough to bet props, though, doesn't it? Right? Because you're sitting there and you're like, I mean, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard, these are great players, but do you trust Jalen Hurts in the passing game to, make, any plays? Saquon's going to be featured a bunch, but Washington also knows that. And they're going to do everything they can to try and make Philly beat them through the air. And then if they're obviously able to do that, Femi, that's when we got ourselves a ball game. And that's when Washington is absolutely live to pull the upset.
Yeah, I think if I'm the Washington Commanders, I'm Dan Quinn, and I'm that coaching staff, I'm saying let's load 8 in the box and let's dare Jalen Hurts to beat us. Let's do that. And I'm sure he'll beat you on a couple of them. He'll find A.J. Brown, he'll find Devontae Smith. But I think more often than not, that's your best path to victory versus let's pray that we can slow them down with 7 guys or maybe dropping an 8th guy in there when the ball is snapped. No, Saquon Barkley can kill you. He can kill you. He can go for 200 easily. So shut him down, make Hurts beat you. Maybe the Washington Commanders actually pull this thing off. I more so am on the Commanders side of this thing, PJ. I hear it. The Eagles are the much better football team, but in the critical areas, head coach, quarterback, I think it's advantage Washington Commanders. And I do think that sometimes the betting market, it takes a little bit of time to catch up to these supernova, really good young quarterbacks. This run, it's not 1-to-1. It's not apples to apples, not entirely parallel, but it does have shades of Cincinnati Bengals shocking the world and getting to the Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's second season. That whole playoff run, outside of the Raider game when they were home favorites, they were doubted against the Titans. They got that game done, and nobody on the planet thought that they were going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC title game, and they did it. And we realized, Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback. I think this playoff run is telling us Jaden Daniels is a top 5 quarterback. Outside of the 4 guys in the AFC, Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, however you want to order that, outside of those 4 guys, there's nobody in the league I'd rather have than Jaden Daniels. He's that good, that special this early. So I think that any game that he's in, if he's catching points like this, you are definitely live. No, Bill puts in the chat, Justin Herbert. Daniels over Herbert, and I'm not even thinking twice. I'm not thinking twice. This dude, Daniels, what he does with his legs, I love Jaden Daniels. He's been a big-time player. So I think that the Commanders are 100% live, especially at price, with a quarterback of Jaden Daniels' caliber. That is the Commanders at the Eagles. The night game, the main event is the AFC title game, featuring 2 of the guys that I mentioned, Josh Allen and the Bills against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. PJ, right now, the Chiefs 2-point favorites. The total sitting at 47.5 over at BetMGM. Buffalo with a couple of injuries. Deion Dawkins, their left tackle, he did not practice today. He was DNP for an illness. I would anticipate that he plays on Sunday. But Christian Benford, their cornerback, starting corner, limited. He's currently in the concussion protocol. And then also their starting safety, Taylor Rapp, DNP with a back and hip injury. Where are you at side total Bills at the Chiefs?
I'm leaning towards the Chiefs here. It's just, Femi, it's too hard for me to go against them in this game. The Bills, you got to give them so much credit. And Josh Allen, a lot of credit for how he's limited the turnovers this season, right? That was always the knock on Allen. It was never about the talent. It was never about the production. It was always about the turnovers. He was just a turnover machine. He threw too many interceptions, fumbles. He hasn't done that this year. I think I saw a crazy stat that the Bills have won the turnover battle in like 22 straight games or something like that. So they have the formula to beat Kansas City because that's how you beat the Chiefs, right? That's what they thrive on is one possession games, letting the other teams make the mistake and capitalize on that. But Buffalo really doesn't let you do that. The problem is, though, is Buffalo hasn't played Kansas City in Arrowhead in an AFC championship game in those 22 games, right? And Femi, I think at this point it's just so mental for all these teams that play the Chiefs, especially on the road. And the margin of error that you have to beat them is so razor thin. The Bills are going to have to play an A game, maybe an A-plus game. Like, they're going to have to be close to perfect. They can't have any turnovers, any costly penalties, any drops. They can't miss any kicks. They got to do everything to win the game. And because of that, because of how great they have to be to beat the Chiefs, because we know the Chiefs aren't going to give it to them, I think Kansas City's the play. So I like the Chiefs in this game. I kind of like the over, too. You know, I know Kansas City hasn't scored more than 30 points all season, but the Bills have scored 24 or more points in 12 straight games. They scored more than 30 against the Chiefs when they beat them in the regular season. So I think Buffalo's offense is just too good. I think they're going to get theirs. And because I like Kansas City to win the game, I think they're going to have to match it. So when these two teams meet, Femi, usually in the regular season, they tend to be lower scoring games. When they meet in the playoffs, that's when we get the shootouts and the instant classics and the back and forth thrillers, right? So we know these are the kind of games where Josh Allen's Superman. He's running, throwing, doing everything. I expect the same thing. Mahomes is going to play like Mahomes. I like the over, and I like Kansas City as well.
I'm with you with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to go against Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's under a field goal at home. I make them beat me. If the Bills win this game, I'll tip the cap and say, you know what, Buffalo, you earned it. Great job. You got over the hump. You got to the playoffs. But I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes in a big game, not under a field goal, and not with this Bills team, which I think has been really good. I don't know if the Bills actually have a high ceiling and have been like a great team. Really good team. I don't know if they're a great team. And now they have to be great to go out there and win at Arrowhead Stadium. It's funny that you brought up the turnovers, though, PJ, because that's been the story of the postseason. I saw Tracy Wolfson, the lead sideline reporter for the NFL on CBS. She tweeted this a couple of hours ago saying that all 4 conference championship teams have 0 turnovers in the playoffs. Wow. It's insane how that's like just not beating themselves have gotten them to this point. But I think that that's not enough on Sunday. I think you actually, in addition to not beating yourself, you also have to go out there and make plays and make big-time plays. I would side more on the Kansas City side than I would the Buffalo side in that department. I think Kansas City gets it done ultimately, and they go ahead and go to a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl where they'll try to make history. And we'll see if it's against the Eagles or the Commanders. Probably going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I hope the Commanders keep it close, but it'll probably be the Philadelphia Eagles who they see Super Bowl Sunday.